What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Welcome back to the Respawn, where I answer your questions. Today we're talking about abilities that raise the skill ceiling, does Genji need a buff, and more. Let's get started. First question, do you think that Overwatch needs a graphics update? I don't think so. I think it looks pretty good where it is. I mean, it's not super amazing photorealistic quality or anything like that, but you don't have any big cutscenes, and the game is more fast-paced, so you don't need to have all of that stuff look super amazing. It's more about performance in a game like Overwatch. And if they were to raise the graphics, then it would make the games harder to run on the slower, lower-end systems. And right now, Blizzard is trying to make the game more available to more people as opposed to less available. Now, it's possible that they could announce some sort of graphics update with Overwatch 2 or maybe some big expansion, but I wouldn't expect that for at least a year or two more. Next up, if 222 hadn't been implemented, would GOATs still be viable with the current patch? So if we're talking about not having 222, but would all the other changes still be in place? Like if Brigitte had been changed, then I think that would definitely still have a significant impact. And it may not be GOATs comp, at least traditional GOATs comp that we have as being the most dominant, but it would probably still be a very tank-heavy lineup. I could very easily see, if there was no 222 restrictions, I could see Orisa, Sigma, D.Va, and Roadhog all on the same team, with maybe Ana and Baptiste as the primary healers, or maybe swapping out Baptiste for a Zenyatta or something like that. You could run Moira and Lucio, but the problem is if the enemy team is always running a D.Va, then her biotic orbs get eaten a lot and it loses a lot of value. But in any case, I think that triple and quad tank would definitely still be a thing. It probably wouldn't be the same as before, but it would definitely still be around, absolutely. Next up, is Genji still a good pick and why? This is kind of a mixed bag situation. I mean, he's good in that he can get past the double barriers, but the problem is that he really can't out-damage all of the huge amounts of healing that the enemy team is going to have in those situations. So you're just better off running stuff like a Doomfist instead. I mean, he's not completely worthless, but he's definitely having a lot of problems, and most of it stems from the fact that Genji was designed at a point in time when Overwatch only had one main healer and two off healers, and that was Mercy as the main, Zenyatta and Lucio as the off healers, and that was it. So Genji could have a lot of effectiveness with just the kind of chip damage that he would do, but as they added more and more healing to the game, he became more and more ineffective trying to deal with this stuff, because whenever he would go in the back and just do a little bit of damage, it would almost be immediately healed up now. So it's more difficult for him to do what he needs to do. And the game has kind of transitioned into more of a bursty phase, right? Where before you could kind of whittle down your opponents, and because the healing was so low, it wasn't that big of a deal. But now, since there's so much healing, you kind of need to be able to take out the enemy in like 1 or 2 seconds, and that's it. And if you can't do that, then you're gonna struggle. And this is a similar situation with characters like Soldier, who also have a lot of that kind of chip damage type stuff. But overall, Genji, not really the best right now. Next up, do you still get the shield of Kinetic Grasp if you cancel it with Accretion? No, you do not. Same goes for his ultimate or anything from the enemy that would interrupt your Kinetic Grasp. If it gets interrupted for any reason, then you don't get the shield. Next, will we get a new map before BlizzCon? It's possible, but I mean, they're going to be rolling out the Halloween Terror stuff pretty soon, so they're probably going to be a little more focused on that. I think that there's a good chance that we'll get a new map announced at BlizzCon, but before it, I don't know about that. Next up, what are those yellow symbols on the left of the screen? Those are network icons. They're telling you there's a little bit of a connection problem with the server. Now, it should be noted that the threshold for this stuff is set very low, which means if there is even the tiniest amount then it will tell you with the icons. So only if it's flashing quite rapidly, or if it looks like it's, you know, really solid, then is there going to be any problems. But if it just pops up every once in a while, then it's not really that big of a deal. Also, it should be noted that a lot of these connection issues take place on Blizzard's end and not yours. So it doesn't mean that your connection is necessarily bad. It just means something else is going on down the line, and you really can't do anything about it. Next question. I play on a 60 Hz monitor. Is it worth it to get one with a higher refresh rate? It really depends. I definitely don't think it's a necessity in most situations, but sometimes, yeah, it's nice to actually upgrade to something with a higher performance. For me, for example, I used to have a 60 Hz monitor. There was a lot of screen tearing. It just didn't look good when I was playing the game, but also because of some of the way the recording software I use for both YouTube and for streaming and stuff, that screen tearing was showing up in some of that content as well, and it just looked ugly, and I didn't want to have that, so I upgraded and changed the game over to a higher refresh rate as well and got rid of the screen tearing, and now it just looks a lot better. But if you're just playing casually, you probably don't need it. However, if you're trying to be more competitive, like, for example, all of the pro players and a lot of the very high-ranked players, they all have higher performing monitors just because the refresh rate allows for a much smoother experience, and the game just looks better and it feels better and things are more accurate to where they're supposed to be, and you don't have those problems with the screen tearing, messing stuff up. I wouldn't say it's a necessity by any stretch, but it's definitely nice depending on your situation. Next up, I'm in bronze and have no friends to play with. My main is Hog and I need tips. Okay, so first thing you have to understand is Roadhog is not a tank, he's a bruiser. So you're not going to be able to really protect your team. This makes him a really bad combo with characters like Zarya and D.Va. You just don't want to run that combination, right? You want to run with Orisa or a Reinhardt or even a Sigma, but just don't run him like as the main tank because you're going to have a bad time. And also keep in mind that Roadhog is an ult battery, so if you're just standing there taking damage, then the enemy is going to build their ultimate very, very fast. But probably the most important thing with Roadhog is you have to get those hooks. You have to make them impactful. If you can grab an enemy and then you and your team can take them out, then that's going to immediately swing the fight in your favor. So there's a couple of things that you can do. Remember, you want to try to hit them with a right click first so that you put a little bit of damage on them. Then you can hit them with the hook, and when you're pulling them in, turn to the side. Because when you turn to the side, you're actually going to end up pulling them further towards your team than you would if you just pull them straight ahead of you. So turn to the side, so that way you pull them a lot, and it makes it so that they have further away to run if they're trying to escape. And then as soon as you pull them in, just left click and quick melee, and most targets are going to get taken out that way, and hopefully your team is going to help you. But those hooks are the most important. They're going to be impactful if you can start landing them quite a bit. So that is probably the best thing that I can tell you for that. Next up, why isn't Widow good against shield busting with such high damage output? It's because she has high burst damage with bonus critical versus players, but overall her damage over time is quite low. So for Widow, she has a 2.5 multiplier on her critical attacks, but all other characters in the game only have a 2 times multiplier. So she gets that little extra benefit, which is why she can be really good when getting those criticals. But against a barrier, you can't get criticals, so it's just normal damage. And there's a big delay between each of her full power attacks. And also, you don't even need a full power attack to take out most of the characters in the game. You only need about 63% charge in order to one-hit critical any of the 200 HP characters in the game. So you can attack more frequently when it's against normal players, but when you're attacking a barrier, you would have to wait for that full power charge, and there's a big delay in between each of them. Overall, the damage over time for non-critical stuff is low, which is bad against barriers, and that's why it just doesn't work. Next up, what is an ability type that increases skill ceiling without increasing the skill floor? Essentially, when it comes to abilities and attacks, what you need to do is reward higher accuracy and better cooldown management and that sort of stuff. So an idea that I had a while ago would be like consecutive criticals. So if you hit someone and you get a critical, and if you're able to get another critical within, let's say, 3 to 5 seconds or something, then there's a minor damage increase. And you can do this several times. So the more frequently you're hitting those criticals, you're going to be rewarded for your better accuracy. So this is going to keep the skill floor of the ability or the attack still the same, because you still have that base damage, but the better of a player you are, the more you can do. So that's the sort of thing where you can raise the skill ceiling without raising the skill floor. Next up, when disengaging from a fight, is it better to turn around and just go, or attack the enemies who might be following you? Well, it depends on the situation. So you need to know first that you move faster while moving forward, and you move slightly slower while backing up. So if you just need to get away, then turning around and running is probably going to be your best. Also, a little bit of a tip here, you can look down at the ground, which causes your head hitbox to move downward, and it will make it difficult for the enemy to actually land criticals on you while you're moving away. But in other situations, it might be a better idea to continue to attack the enemy to try to force them to take cover, in which case you can then escape that way. But it really depends on the situation. There's lots of different variables that you could throw around here. Just know that moving forward is always going to be faster than moving backward. But that's going to be all the questions for this week. Thank you to everyone who submitted one. Remember, I post the question card every Saturday on the community tab of my YouTube channel. And if you want to find a full list of every question that's ever been asked, you can find it on my Discord server. Link for that down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.